Hi. Make me earn it. Make me earn it. Good morning, I guess. My name is Kalev. Talked to a lot of you. Enjoyed all the conversations. If I don't appear as smart or as active or as bright as maybe yesterday, then you can blame Kirsty back there, who decided to go to drinks yesterday after the bar. But I'll do my best. Second of all, Optimove people, Binny, Ronnie, we just finished the acquisition like 2-3 weeks ago. Now decided to give me a keynote without ever even knowing if I can do any presentations. And Mori just asked me, hey, by the way, have you ever done any public speaking? So it's either you're kind of mental or you put in a lot of trust in us. And I'm kind of know that you're pretty smart people. So thank you for all the trust and thank you for kind of giving me the ability to talk about my passion, which is about gamification. And this is inspired by this book. I don't know if any of you have ever read it. It's called What I Talk About When I Talk About Running. And the reason why I like it, the reason why I like the book, I'm not a runner, is because we all know how running works, right? We can go kind of see people running, and it's pretty cool. You know, you get from point A to point B, but no one really knows what's behind, what's in the mindset of people who run every day or who do marathons. There's a crazy Estonian guy called Rait Ratasep. I just kind of remembered him. He's been doing 60 full triathlons in 60 consecutive days, which is crazy, right? So those people who really enjoy running and are really passionate about it, probably some of you in the audience as well, they know something that other people don't. They can kind of define it and explain it, like what it means to them, what is the thought and what's the inspiration that goes behind it for such a simple activity. And for me, gamification is very similar. I've talked to a lot of people, yesterday, we've done a lot of demos, and almost every time we have this conversation about gamification, everybody kind of gives their own definition. Like, what are they looking for about it? What do they envision when they start using gamification? And of course, I have my own vision, I have my own understanding, and the idea of this talk is to kind of a little bit open up how I think about it. So I've been doing gamification pretty long time. I started in 2014. I was working in New York at an agency. We did a lot of loyalty programs. We did Keurigs, we did Volkswagen, we did Caesar's Palace. I then started my own consultancy on gamification back in Estonia. Then I realized that in order to be a consultant, you have to be good at selling yourself, and I'm a humble Estonian. I don't really know how to do it. And then I started Adact, which is a software that allows all the companies to start using gamification or game-based marketing without any coding, to kind of eliminate all the kind of technical aspects about it and the cost-associated aspects. And today, I'm very glad to be joined with Optimove to continue this mission and kind of to provide gamification to everybody. So, why is it so complicated? Why is something so simple so complicated? So, you can just think about yourself, what is the word? And I know it's weird wording. What is a word in an English language that has the most amount of definitions? Right? So you can a little bit think about it. Because the word is game, right? You have so many different words for game, and all of them mean different things. So if you go to Oxford Dictionary, it's very hard to find one definition for game. It's always context-dependent. So it remains one of the context-dependent words in English language. And in fact, Ludwig Wittgenstein, the Austrian philosopher, also famously said in his research in the philosophical investigation that not a single definition can fully capture the word of a game. And it's also weird, when you're doing in a like a friend setting, like you would ask, tell me one of your darkest secrets or like weirdest secrets, right? No one's going to tell you. Why would you? But if you say, hey, let's play a game, let's play truth or dare. Now tell me your darkest secrets. And I was like, okay. For some reason, if you put a game context around it, it becomes much more approachable, much more friendly. But is truth or dare a game? What makes a game? It has been a word ever since the 8th century. But gamification was really started to use and coined in like 2022, or not 2022, 2002. It's like, Harry Potter and I think Prisoner of Azkaban came out this year. Avril Lavigne sang like it's complicated. So it's a very, very new thing. So how can we expect that a word hundreds of years old, and that is the root word for the gamification, which we have already defined, has very, very hard time defining the word, and now we all know what we talk about when we talk about gamification. So let's try to be a little bit humble and give the idea that, okay, maybe there's a little bit more to the picture that we don't understand. So what do I talk about when I talk about gamification? Let's try a couple variants. What about, let's use points and badges and other specific elements with the goal of increasing business metrics. It's a very common approach, maybe not in this specific definition, but it's a common way of thinking, right? So we will take a system, we will enrich it with different points, we will enrich it with different badges, and now our numbers go up. It's cool. And I do have a lot of kind of people asking me, are airline miles, airline programs, loyalty programs, are these gamification? Is this gamification? Well, let's see. First of all, I just use the airlines, we can use whatever loyalty program, but it's all aimed to be transactional value. It's kind of intrinsic value. You earn those game design elements like points and tiers and everything, and in return, you get something out of monetary value. Also, they have a really high ceiling and very large progression gaps, which means they usually have like 2, 3 tiers, maybe 4 tiers. When you just started out, you're in tier number 1. When you're like 99% of the people, you're in tier number 2. And I'm not in tier number 3. I don't know anybody who is, probably some of you. Or maybe on tier number 4, right? But there are very huge gaps in between. And also, it's all of those, not all of those, but most of those loyalty programs really have those kinds of relevancy only at the moment of purchase or at the moment of redemption. So they're not active all the time. They're only active when you're doing this one thing that you will do anyway. So this kind of a idea will be that if an airline loyalty program or any other loyalty program that operates the same way, if that will be a game, it will be kind of a shitty game. And the reason why is it only has linear progression. But in game design, and me with a passion of one day or a dream of building my own board game and teaching game design in Estonian Business School, I really want to design a good game. So what makes a good game compared to the bad game? So when you're looking at bad games, are we looking at bad loyalty? No, not bad loyalty programs, just loyalty programs in general. Because they do work. I'm not here to say that loyalty programs and airline miles don't work. They increase lifetime value, they increase retention, and everything, and like 90% of the people never use the miles anyway. But what happens is it's a linear progression. You first engage, then you get some kind of a cookie, you redeem the cookie, and you're done. And then we wait until you go back to the store and buy another ticket. And then only at that time does this loyalty program have any effect. But in game design, we don't like that. In game design, we want it to be a thing called game loop. This means that a person can enter the loop from any position, from any step, and each next step will always give input to the next step. Right? So that's how most of the games are designed. So first you engage, for example, and it's hugely simplified, don't worry about it. First you engage, then the system gives you some progressional updates about and during the engagement, and then you get feedback. And that is one thing that is, for me, one of the most important things, and in gamification in general. What I do like to say is, like, life is one of the shittiest games out there because it never gives you any feedback, but games do constantly. So, like, if you take a real-world example, if you want to lose weight or something and you go to the gym, I guess. So a person who will go to the gym every single day and come back, compared to a person who will go to the gym every day, come back, step on a scale, and take a picture of their body, and then go back the next time and have this constant feedback that they're giving them, themselves, they are way more likely to reach their goal because of the feedback. You always need to know where you are and how can I get to the next step. And then we have a call to action, usually a call to action or something that suggests what to do next. And what should we do next? We should engage. And then we'll get the progress update, right? So it's always goes around in a loop. And this is the main difference for me for general loyalty programs, just transactional loyalty programs, and gamified systems. But the second thing is, transactional loyalty schemes do deal really well with those kinds of transactional aspects. As I mentioned, they do work. But there's one thing missing. And that's the key thing for me also that differentiates gamification from loyalty, from just simple loyalty programs, is that they don't deal with enjoyment. I could easily, I know I'm kind of a nerd, but I could easily play like 8 hours of a video game. Any nerds out here? No? Woo! Not every game, but it has to be good. But why? Like, what keeps me playing this stupid game for 8 hours? I can do board games for 10 hours, no problem. But there has to be something there. And that is what game design actually teaches us, what keeps us playing. So we need to, in an ideal world, and that's where like one of the theories of where the gamification aspects came in, like if a person can enjoy an activity for 8 hours, then we take all the science behind it, we'll take it out, and then put it to another context, and then they will use our systems for 8 hours straight, right? Obvious, simple, it doesn't work like that, but whatever. So how about when we talk about gamification, then we talk about the use of techniques to make a non-game concept feel more like a game, right? So we'll bring the enjoyment into it. But how do we do it? So I can spend at least 3 hours talking about this specific thing, but there's two kind of ideas that I like to focus on. So in a game design, and all this kind of idea of making a game enjoyable and everything, it does feature a lot of psychological aspects, a lot of the tricks and everything. Not tricks, but just we kind of know what drives people. It is just about using this knowledge in a correct context. And one of my favorites, because it's just so simple, and if you don't take anything else from this talk, take this, because it's so simple, and every person should be using this if you have the context. So it's called endowment progression, which basically means that the probability of anyone finishing a task is in direct correlation in terms of how many steps are already completed, right? So the person who just starts doing something is less likely to finish all the steps compared to a person who is in the middle, who has already done a couple of steps, right? Sounds easy. In addition, not only the probability of finishing all the tasks is higher, it's also that the steps in between finishing each task gets progressively shorter the further you are in the loop, or like the further we are in the steps. So what we did, there was a study in Boston with a car wash. Some of you may know it; it's pretty famous, at least for me. So what they did was they gave out stamps for 5 car washes. Right? So you have every 6th car wash or every 5th car wash, I don't remember, for free, or was it discounted? And then the other group will get 7. You have to come back 7 times. But the trick was that for the 7 group, first 2 stamps were stamped at the moment of receiving the card, right? So the total distance, the total number of steps required to earn that car wash never changed. It's still 5, but in one case, you just had this endowment progression of 2 steps completed for you. If anyone's interested, I can send you the study. It's pretty crazy. The results, they studied for 4 different things, and it's like approximately 30 to 40% of increased finish rate on the tickets with endowment progression. And as I said, I think it's one of the easiest things to do. But why am I talking about enjoyment aspects? One of the things that the study also researched was how satisfied were they with the program. And those with the endowment progression program were increasingly more satisfied. They were more enjoying the process because ticking off steps and like seeing your progression and seeing like you're nearly there, it just makes the whole experience much more enjoyable. But there's other ways companies have been doing it. Not companies, but what if we take a thing that is not a game, but we make it appear like a game, right? So it's like, it's just visually, it's a game, but it's nothing to do with being a game. So that is the study. It's called shallow gamification. That researches about the topic of gamification, right? So this game right here, it's a board game that was used in the research. And there was 3 groups of people. You had one group, the control group, where basically you had a company, you had different tables, and different groups were, groups of 5, 6 people were on a table. One person took a card, like a cue card or a, whatever, that had something that is wrong in the company or some kind of an issue. And then everybody in the table started discussing about it. And this control group, when you finish discussing, the next person draws a card, start talking about the topic, and so on. But for a second group, they introduced the game condition, which is actually like, game condition is not the right word, but they just put the board on the table. Now what happened was every time you took the card to start discussing the problem in the round table, once you finish, you take your piece, you move it one step further. Right? Nothing else. So it's not a game. But boy, it feels like a game. You mean you have a piece and the board and the thing? Yeah, it's pretty fun. And then the third group also play the game, but once the person kind of finished it and everybody kind of rated who gave the most input to the, no pun intended, most input in the kind of conversation, and that person received from 0 to 5 stars, or like from 0 to 5 steps. And now we have a competition going on, right? So what did we learn from this? There was actually one more fun thing. I think they did it for like an hour, and then the researchers come in and say like, hey, we're done, right? But there is like 30 minutes before the results come in, so chill, do whatever you want. And then what they noticed is group number 3 continue going, right? Yeah, I know it's over, but we haven't decided who has won yet. So they went on. Others didn't. And then reportedly, which group enjoyed the exercise the most? It's number 2. So number 2 enjoyed the exercise the most because it has the game-like element and everything, but what it also didn't have is the stress of competition. Right? Not all people like to compete, and it has a lot of knowledge and a lot of learnings that can come from how to design a leaderboard. Right? Because not all leaderboards can be designed the same way. Not all people like the competitiveness of the leaderboard. Some people want to see them on the top. Some of the people want to see just how far are they from their nearest friend, even if they're like position 3,000. If someone comes to a game and then sees top 10 in the leaderboards like full with like crazy scores and crazy results, they're never going to even play the game because it's very stressful. But the highest quality, of course, highest quality of contribution, of course, came from number 3. Number 1 just existed, I don't remember. So we do try to combine, and that's the difference for me. We do try to combine increased transactional value with enjoyment. And that's when we get gamification. And that's what I kind of talk about. When I talk about gamification, in a definition, you wouldn't find it in Google. That's my 2 small brains. 1. I do believe that gamification is a strategic, a zero-cost retention model, which uses game design principles to encourage engagement and build long-term loyalty. That's what I believe. That's what I think. Now I can drill it down a little bit because it has a lot of meat to the bone. So let me explain. It is a strategic strategy. it has strategy to it, because at the end of the day, the only reason you will do it is still, we have to understand it has to increase some KPIs. It has to increase either lifetime values, it has to reduce churn, it has to increase engagement, which in turn results in higher conversion. So there's a lot of KPIs it has to modify. We cannot just do it because of the fun of it. And very often, if we just take the points and badges, put them on top, we don't really think about, but what metrics should they increase? And then it becomes really difficult to later analyze, is the thing even working or not? So it has to be a very strategic approach. In my mind, it is a zero-cost model, or like a retention model. And, I don't mean that Optimove is going to give gamification for free to everybody, but it does mean that once the system starts working, then we're not tied to the rewards that we're giving out. Right? Because you're only as good as your last reward. The second thing about giving out rewards, let me jump in for a second, is if you have a marketing activity or loyalty activity, whatever, and then one day you'll give out like free pair of iPods, whatever, back in 2001. You give like a really good reward, like a free iPhone to someone. And then the next time, you better have a better reward than the previous one. Because now you're getting compared to the previous one, so you have to be really smart about which rewards you're giving out, not to give out too much, because you're only as good as your last reward. So what I mean by zero cost is that most of the rewards that we want to focus on in gamification has to be intrinsic value. Right? The reward is the program itself. The reward is progressing in the system. You handing out a new level or a tier, of course, it may incur some benefits and discounts and whatever. But that's the reason why people do it. That's at least one of the reasons. So the reward is participating in the model and designing the model, adding new aspects to the model, doing new levels, new milestones, and everything. That doesn't cost anything. It's just setting up the system. It does use game design principles. There are so many more principles than just points and badges. I've used at least like 20, 30 in my career. You can go as far as like frames. You can have different background images. Like if anyone play World of Warcraft or something. Like if you're just a very small and weak character, you're in this green, fluffy field. The stronger you get, the background goes. You go fight dragons, and it's like red and black and everything. So this is also a game design principle: how to explain the difficulty of a thing using visual cues. But the game mechanics are the what. But the game design is why. Why are we using points? Why are we using badges? For example, you can add any number of badges you want to your system. If you are the only person who can see those badges, they have 0 point. Because the entire concept of a badge design is to show them. And if you show them, then other people have to realize that they're really valuable. You can take like military insignia, for example, right? So you have like the insignia on the shoulder. Most people they're only relevant to the people who understand the value of the insignia. But imagine you having, like, you're a corporal or something, and then you tuck it behind, like no one can see it. You feel maybe good, no one else cares. There's a lot of those. But it has to encourage engagement. So we guide the user for further engagement, not just to do this one transaction, but what happens the entire rest of the time when they're not using a loyalty program. I like this. One of my favorite lectures of all time is his last lecture from Randy Pausch. I don't know if someone knows it. But it has the similar concept or similar idea of you go to a football training, and then the coach doesn't bring the ball. And then Randy said, Randy said to the coach, hey, where's the ball? How can we trade? And then the coach said, okay, so how many people are in the football field at any given time? It was 11 plus 11, that's 22. And how many people are touching the ball at any given time? Just 1. Okay, so this training, we're going to learn what the other 21 people are doing, right? So I like this idea because it's kind of a head fake that he uses as well. You do have to design for the rest of the time as well. How can we create an enjoyment and engagement while they're not specifically purchasing that airline ticket? Is there a way? Maybe. That's kind of my job to figure it out. And also to build long-term loyalty. So a well-designed gamification system is kind of a gift that keeps on giving. Remember when I said about the endowment progression before, where you will have some of the steps, and the more steps you have taken, the more likely you are to finish the entire task? That exact same concept applies here in building long-term loyalty, because the more people have used your system, the more likely they keep on using it, using the same principle. We can also bring in loss aversion, for example. Loss aversion, in simplicity, means that people don't want to lose stuff that they've gotten. Yeah. Simple. Like losing something makes you really, really, really unhappy. Winning something makes you a little bit happy. So, that's the... And once you've already invested into the loyalty system, once you've already invested into your gamification kind of progress, like you've already earned something, then you really don't want to get rid of it. And that also kind of wants you to engage more. And if you notice, I never talk anything about like tricking people or kind of making them kind of feel like, if you spin the wheel, then you'll get this prize, and it's like dopamine rush. No. Like for me, I see it in a different way. I see it as a way to increase enjoyment of using our software, using our system, participating in marketing activities, not because you have to, but because you want to. And the well-designed gamification system should do it. And I believe that is everything that I talk when I talk about gamification. If you have other ideas, talk to me. But joining forces with Optimove will result in the most complete gamification solution in the market. I'm 100% sure of it. So yes, today we can use those branded minigames to increase engagement. And we are, by God, I'm 100% sure it's the best way to do it. A lot of you have seen it, and if you haven't, you can test it out in the back there. We can create any sort of a game-based marketing in like 15 minutes. And we can use them for increased acquisition, increased engagement, and so on. This is what we have today. And it's ready. Easy. Give us a month or so, a little bit more. Then all of the gameplay analytics, how many times someone has played, how often someone has played, what did they win, which games did they prefer, which answers they gave to all the questions. You can do trivia questions. You can do gamified feedback. All of this information can now be integrated back to Optimove segmentation. And you can use that information in the follow-up activities. But this is still implementing those random minigames. Now, the third thing, and that's the last thing that I'll do in my career ever, is this. And this is something that is like the final boss for me in gamification. We will build a fully customizable and fully comprehensive loyalty and gamification solution, which also features everything we can do today. This means that everything I talked about, all this knowledge, all this understanding of different psychological effects, all this kind of a well-designed game loop, everything will be included. And I'm pretty sure that this kind of a software does not exist in the world, and Optimove will be the first one to have it. And I'm very excited. Hell yeah! Whoops, sorry. Thanks, Pinny. So thank you. That is what I talk about.